अथ अष्टमोऽध्यायः अक्षरब्रह्मयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच किं तद्ब्रह्म किमध्यात्मं किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तम अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम् अधिदैवं किमुच्यते अधियज्ञः कथं गोत्र देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन प्रयाणकाले च कथं ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं स्वभावोऽध्यात्म उच्यते भूतभावोद्भवकरो विसर्गः कर्म संज्ञितः अधिभूतं क्षरो भावः पुरुषश्चाधिदैवतम् अधियज्ञोऽहमेवात्र देहे देहभृतां वर अन्तकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावं याति नास्त्यत्र संशयः यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरम् तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभावितः तस्मात् सर्वेषु अथ अष्टमोऽध्यायः अक्षरब्रह्मयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच किं तद्ब्रह्म किमध्यात्मं किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तम अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम् अधिदैवम् अथ अष्टमोऽध्यायः अक्षरब्रह्मयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच किं तद्ब्रह्म किमध्यात्मं किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तम अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम् अधिदैवं किमुच्यते। अधियज्ञः कथं गोत्र देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन प्रयाणकाले च कथं ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः श्रीभगवानुवाच अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं स्वभावोऽध्यात्म उच्यते भूतभावोद्भवकरो विसर्गः कर्म संज्ञितः अधिभूतं शरो भावः पुरुषश्चाधिदैवतम् अधियज्ञोऽहमेवात्र देहे देहभृताम्बर अन्तकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावं याति नास्त्यत्र संशयः यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरम् तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभावितः तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु मामनुस्मरयुध्य च मय्यर्पितमनो बुद्धिर्मामे वैश्यस्य संशयः अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा नान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थानुचिन्तयन् कविं पुराणम् अनुशासितारम् अणोरणीयां समनुस्मरेद्यः सर्वस्य धातारमचिन्त्य रूपम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसः परस्तात् प्रयाणकाले मनसाचलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगबलेन चैव भ्रुवोर्मध्ये प्राणमावेश्य सम्यक् सतं परं पुरुषमुपैति दिव्यम् यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागाः यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं सङ्ग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूर्ध्याधायात्मनः प्राणमास्थितो योगधारणाम् ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरान् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहं स याति परमां गतिम् अनन्यचेताः सततं यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतम् नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः आब्रह्मभुवनान् लोकाः पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तं महर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्तां तेहोरात्रविदो जनाः अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रधीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके भूतग्रामः स एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ प्रभवत्यः रागमे परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यः स सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तस्तमाहुः परमां गतिम् यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम पुरुषः स परः पार्थ भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया यस्यान्तःस्थानि भूतानि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्मविदो जनाः धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिर्योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते शुक्लकृष्णे गतीह्येते जगतः शाश्वते मते एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपःसु चैव दानेषु यत्पुण्यफलम् प्रदिष्टम् अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम् ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे अक्षरब्रह्मयोगो नाम अष्टमोऽध्यायः।
Hare Krishna, do you hear me? Can you hear me? I unmuted. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Participant on Zoom, can you please confirm whether you can hear me? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Zoom it is coming. Sure. Volumes. Any adjustment to be made? Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatirandasya Dhananjanasharakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Smapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sajana Raghunatham Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagaspate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gauram Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Drishaman Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Voice is very low. Hare Krishna, any better?
Yes, Rosie.
So today
Now
we'll be discussing chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, another important chapter in the middle section of the Bhagavad Gita, which are talking about Bhakti Yoga. And just as last chapter is known as confidential knowledge, because Krishna reveals knowledge about himself, this is going one step further, and it is therefore called more confidential knowledge, whereby Lord Krishna is telling us how to approach him, how he can be attained. So this there's a very nice story in the Padma Purana. Lord Shiva is glorifying this 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita to Mother Parvati. So there's a husband and wife. They were enjoying life like anything. And at the time of death, they could not get another body because they had basically led a very sinful life. So they were remaining as ghosts. So they went and sat under a tree, a palm tree, and they were lamenting. And moreover, on the palm tree, there were so many ghosts. Already some ghosts were residing there. And this husband and wife are lamenting that why we are in this body. So how to get free from this suffering? So then the husband said that by knowing about Brahman, Adhyatma, and Karma, I have heard, he said that I heard that by knowing about Brahman, by knowing about the Adhyatma and about knowing about Karma, he himself doesn't know the details about it, but he remembers that if you know this, we can, these are important questions to be known. So then the wife, in the form of a ghost, asked her husband, Kim tad Brahma, Kim Adhyatmam, Kim Karma, Purushottama. So she was saying, what is that Brahman, what is Karma, and what is Adhyatma? And she said Purushottama. Purushottama, she was referring to her husband. Actually, the moment she uttered this verse, then immediately all the ghosts in the tree got delivered, and they also got delivered from the ghostly experience. So they were wondering what happened. So unknowingly, they had recited half the verse of the first half of the first verse of the 8th chapter. Kim tad Brahma, Kim Adhyatmam, Kim Karma, Purushottama. So in the last chapter, Krishna had mentioned about these three things. One who knows about Brahman, Adiyajna, and this karma at the time of death, he will not face any difficulty, because death is the most difficult situation. But if during the course of your life you have cultivated knowledge about these three things, then it will not be difficult. So that's how Krishna had concluded the 7th chapter. So in response to that, in this chapter beginning, Arjuna is asking Krishna about these 6 or 7 questions. So Arjuna asked about Brahma. Brahman means the spirit soul. Adhyatma means about the body and the mind. Atma can mean the body, mind, and soul. And karma means fruitive activities. Activities which we do to get the result-oriented activities. Sometimes you do activities even if you don't get a result. If you think that it's beneficial for others, it may not be beneficial to you. Next is Adibhuta. Who is the controlling these material elements? Is there anyone controlling these material elements? Adideva. Now, the person who is controlling the material elements is a person. And who's controlling such living entities, or who's controlling the demigods? Adi Yajna means who's the recipient of the sacrifices. When I do some activity, someone must be pleased by my activity, and then only he will give me the result of the activity. For example, if I'm working for some company, I'm being paid for my work because the proprietor is happy with my work or pleased with my work. So when I'm doing some activity, I don't want it to go waste. Sometimes you feel I wasted my effort, time, energy. But there's definitely some person who's witnessing that and is giving the result. So who is that? Adi Yajna. And after all these 6 questions, Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma, Adibhuta, Adideva, Adi Yajna, these are the 6 questions. And one more question is asking about Prayana Kala. At the time of death, how one can remember Krishna? Because the first 6 things are addressing the problem, and the 7th one is about the solution. So Krishna answers all of them and elaborates the last topic in the rest of this chapter. The first 6 questions he addresses them immediately and then goes into detail about the last question. So remembering Krishna at the time of death. So what is the main theme? Whatever one remembers at the time of death, he attains that destination. Actually, if you see, every moment our body is changing. So this is also one kind of a death of the body, because change is inevitable. The body has to change to accommodate our desires. Supposing I have to go to some place, I desire to go to some place, then my body has to cooperate to fulfill that desire. So similarly, the body is constantly changing imperceptibly. But how this change is happening? Is it random? No. Subconsciously, as we told about, different levels of consciousness are there. So according to these different levels of consciousness, there are different changes happening in the body. Sometimes we don't know how our digesting our food also. There's happening, something is happening within my body, but consciously I don't know how it is happening. But if it is happening, it means subconsciously something is working. So therefore, this change of the body ultimately is happening because of the what we are meditating at that time. So nothing is accidental. Some people say, oh, suddenly he died. There's no sudden death actually. If you strictly know the scriptures, there's nothing like sudden death. Or for that matter, nothing happens suddenly or accidentally. From our perspective, it may look accident. But if you analyze the details, everything is very systematic. And so one should practice remembering Krishna throughout life and while leaving body, and attain him easily after death. So here the point is, if it is a fact that my body is changing because depending on the thoughts prevailing at that moment, and if it is advisable to therefore go to this abode of the Lord where we don't have to take birth again, So naturally, it is good to remember Krishna at the time of death. But this doesn't happen suddenly. We have to practice for that. Sometimes people go to the examination hall and forget whatever they prepared because last minute preparation. But if they had prepared throughout, then it's most likely that they will remember. Similarly, depending on how we lead our life every moment, that will predominate at the time of death, because at the time of death, the thoughts are very fast. Now our thoughts are going at one speed. But at the time of death, so many thoughts, sometimes you dream and so many things happen in the dream. So similarly, at the time of death, there will be a flood of thoughts happening. And in that particular flood of thoughts, you hold on to one particular thing, and that is immediately decides the next body. Just like you might have done so much preparation for the course, and the examination may be for just 3 hours. Ultimately, even though you spend the entire 6 months for the course, that 3 hours, whatever you can remember, that only decides how you do the exam. Similarly, although we lead our life, at that moment of death, what you think about, that only is going to determine your future. So this is a very important point. So now, how to remember Krishna? That is the question now. Some people, because they are not trained in remembering Krishna, they try to do Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Means they are doing Bhakti, but their intention is to get some mystic powers. Just like you are trying to solve a problem desperately, and you are told that God also can help you, and if you tell that some other person also can help you, most likely we won't put our faith in God. We will say, okay, maybe God may be there, may not be there, but I trust this person. Some doctor, let us say at the time of death, one doctor comes, very expert doctor, and you are told you remember Krishna, but you may have doubt. Better than remembering Krishna, doctor is here right now, maybe he will save me. So like that, there are some Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. So what they think is Bhakti they're doing, but their intention is to get some mystic powers. Okay, even if I don't go to the abode of the Lord, at least I will get some elevation to some higher planet, or get some mystic power by which I can continue my life in this material world. So that is, but they are also remembering Krishna, but they are not trying to attain the abode of Krishna. They want to be satisfied with something less than that. So there are different ways of remembering Krishna. That is, if you want to, because at the time of death, again, same thing, we told that many thoughts will come to our mind. So in order to fix our mind from the deviations possible, if I give you many options or many things, then at least one you will remember. So Krishna is explaining how he is the Kavi. Kavi means he knows everything, poet. And Puranam is the oldest, and so on. So also Krishna talks about this Chakra Yoga. 6 chakras are there in our body, starting from the base of the spine up to the top of the head. So this has correlation with the 8 material elements Krishna talked about in the beginning of the 7th chapter: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. This has relation to that. And not only that, there are 7 planetary systems. Bhur, Bhuvar, Swar, Maha, Tapa, Jana, Satya. So like this has relation with these 6 chakras. And these are the energy centers. So by the life airs are there, prana, they are known as prana. So these pranas are within this body. And that is why the body is able to function in equilibrium. The pranas, life airs, they should be in equilibrium within the body. And that is why the soul is able to remain in the body. The moment the pranas leave the body, then the soul has to go with the pranas, wherever it goes. Just like sometimes the wind blows, it carries away one object. So like that, this soul, which is not, basically, it is if the consciousness is not on Krishna, then the soul goes with the flow of the pranas. Now Krishna is talking about how to remember him by pure bhakti. Because when you do pure devotion, immediately Lord is able to recognize us. Just like a magnet is there, if you put some iron in front of it, immediately attracts it. But if that iron is covered with some dust, it will not be able to attract it. So even though Krishna is so powerful, because we are contaminated, our consciousness, we don't get attracted to Krishna. So one can attain Krishna's abode easily by Kevala Bhakti. Kevala Bhakti means only devotion. For such devotees, there is no rebirth which is there in all planets. If I speak too close to this, it will help. Your laptop has a mic. No, I'm asking, if I speak without this, will your Now is it any better? Can you hear me if I speak now without the...
Yes, Prabhuji, now it is nice.
Okay. So, if you go to the other planets, every planet there's a demigod in charge. And since those demigods also take birth and death, so whoever is living on that planet also has to be born again. But one who goes to Krishna's planet, there is no rebirth because whoever is living there is eternal. Then Krishna distinguishes between the material and spiritual worlds. So basically, the distinction is based on the consciousness. And so when do these living entities acquire a body? That depends on the Brahma. Brahma is the first created being. And when he takes a body, then all the other living entities also acquire a body. And when he leaves his body, all the living entities who are having a body till then also lose their body. So as we said earlier, Krishna's abode is eternal and indestructible. Why it is indestructible? As I said, whatever we perceive, it depends on our consciousness. Only because of our consciousness, we are able to see, smell, taste, and touch and hear. But if our consciousness is not there, that object also doesn't exist. So because in the spiritual world, that consciousness is pure, so whatever we perceive, that pure consciousness, the spiritual world, is eternal. But in this material world, because we have material consciousness, whatever we perceive is perishable. So here Krishna is mentioning of Ananya Bhakti. Bhakti without any desire for fruitive results, liberation, or mystic powers. And the last part, Krishna talks about pure bhakti of attaining Krishna. Krishna explains about the yogi who leaves his body in different times of the day or the month or the year. Just like you have, if you want to go from one place to another, the transport system is there, and depending on which bus or flight you take, your destination is different. So similarly, all these times of months, times of the day, month, and the year, they are governed by some personalities, are known as presiding deities. They are present at that particular time. And if you leave your body at that time, you go with them to wherever they take you. The soul cannot move on its own. The soul has to be moved from one body to another by other superior beings. And those superior beings are in charge of one particular time. Just like if a course is being taught, so-and-so professor will teach from this hour, next person, next hour. So everything is, slots are given. But Krishna says, A devotee of Krishna attains Krishna's supreme abode and never returns back. Because Krishna personally comes and takes him. Or his representatives come, Vishnu Dutas come and personally take him. So that is the important message in this chapter summary. In the previous chapter, Krishna mentioned several terms starting with Brahman. And in this chapter, Arjuna inquires about them. Lord Krishna answers 7 of them in the first 4 verses and the last question in the rest of the chapter. Krishna also speaks about Kevala Bhakti and Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Why Kevala Bhakti and Yoga Mishra Bhakti? Yoga Mishra Bhakti, they can go out of these planetary systems and attain the Brahman effulgence. But the Ananya Bhakta, he can attain the abode of the Supreme Lord. So these are the 2 options available. But those who don't do any of these, then they come back to this world again. So what is Arjuna's questions? So one way I think what is important for me, because these questions also we should be asking. For Arjuna, the most intelligent person is asking Lord Krishna, just supposing you meet a very important person and you have very limited time. You cannot waste that opportunity. You have to put the best questions and get the best answers from him. So from Arjuna's questions, we should know what is the most important thing that should be on my mind. So what is his first question? What is Brahman? Brahman is referring to the spirit soul, the living entity. Why we should know about the living entity? Because he is indestructible. Aksharam, Kshara and Akshara. And he is transcendental, which means he is beyond the 3 modes of material nature which are presently controlling him. And he is separate from the material body. Actually, we think I am in this body right now. Just like in a dream, we are experiencing that we are in the dream, that moment. Strictly speaking, the soul is not within the body. Soul is present in the body only by consciousness. Just like in the dream, your consciousness is in the dream. So you are nowhere. The dream you may see, you may going here and there. That is only by your consciousness, but you are not going anywhere. Your body is lying there. Similarly, we think we are moving with this body. Whatever body, mind is thinking, I'm also thinking that is me. But that is not, because the soul has no position. You cannot say the soul is in one position. Only objects in this world, they have a position and the time. For the soul, there is no position or time. But it appears as if the soul is in the body. So that's why it is said to be separate from the material body. But right now it appears as if the soul is very much within the body, isn't it? So what is Adhyatma? Adhyatma means what is the nature of the soul? That is the Swabhava. The eternal nature of the impressions that accompany the Jiva and govern the body. So how the soul is acquiring different bodies? Because of the impressions, samskara it is called. The soul, just like some breeze is flowing on the rose garden, then the breeze carries that fragrance. So this soul is carrying the impressions from one body to another, and that impressions only cause the next body or the next mental state. Next is karma, that is fruitive activities. Means we have made up our mind that if I do this only, I will get this. So that is how our mindset is right now, that I want this, and to achieve this, I have to do this. That is how known as fruitive activity of the jiva that lead to transmigration from one material body to another. So the living entity can achieve everything it wants without the body also. But the soul has become so conditioned that it thinks that, for example, he wants to swim. Then he thinks I can enjoy that swimming experience only when I am in the fish body. Or if he wants to fly, he thinks only if I get a bird body, I can enjoy that flying experience. So like that, actually the soul can experience all this without having a body also. But because of his conditioned nature, he thinks that if I acquire this body only, I can do this activity and get that particular result. What is Adibhuta? Adibhuta means, Prakrit Bhutas means the material elements. Who's controlling these material elements? That is the Prakriti. The constant changing Chara, physical world or material body consisting of material elements.
Now, in order to fulfill the desires of the living entities, the material nature is providing a particular body. And how this body is being formed, that means someone is controlling. Just like if this mic has been manufactured, there was some person who manufactured it. So we could not do it, but he has done it. He has taken the ingredients and combined them and produced this object. So who is that Adi Bhuta? Next is Adi Yajna. So before that, Adi Deva. Deva means who's witnessing all this, who's sanctioning everything. So that is known as the Virat Purusha. That's what we will see in the 11th chapter. The gigantic universal form, which includes all the demigods and their planets. Now all these planets are located in their place, and on those planets there are living entities and the governing bodies. So how they are staying in that position? Some arrangement must be there. Just like you have so many departments here, they didn't randomly come like that. Someone designed it and made it there where it is. So this Virat Rupa is referred to as the Adi Deva. Deva means control. Who is the ultimate controller? Right. What is? And who is Adi Yajna? Adi Yajna means when I am doing some activity, who is going to witness that and give me the result of the activity? So Paramatma, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Lord, presented as the Super Soul. Which means that no matter who is pleased or not pleased with my activity, the Paramatma is always going to witness that. Sometimes you do something and say, nobody cares about what I did. But no, whatever we do, Paramatma is witnessing it and he is sanctioning the result. So we can never say that I didn't get any result. It may not come the way you wanted, but definitely some result is being sanctioned by the Paramatma. Next is, who is the main important question? Although the 6 questions seem to be very important, but the most important is, how is Adi Yajna known in the body? That is, he is the most important person among all these 6 questions, but we rarely perceive him. So how? So he is in the heart of every embodied being. So heart here refers means to consciousness. As the regulator, I inspire performance of sacrifice and other acts. So who is it that is motivating me from the beginning of creation to do something? So later we'll see Krishna says, from me comes knowledge, remembrance and forgetfulness. So because this Paramatma does this very important function of giving us knowledge, remembrance and forgetfulness, we are able to survive in this world. And next is how to know you at the point of death. So why we should know about Krishna at the point of death? All these other things will not help us. Only 2 things will be useful to us. Who am I and who is God? And how to remember him. So he's asking about, this is the main subject of the rest of his chapter, how to know you at the point of death. Prayana Kali. Because if you don't remember Krishna at the time of death, someone else will come and take you to where you go. So by service to Krishna, one attains the real meaning of these words and understands that Brahman and Adhyagnya are worthy of realizing, and the other items, impressions, karma, gross body, and universal form is worthy of rejection. So all these seem to be very important, but if you are not properly oriented, then you may get distracted at the time of death. So these things are also important, but they are not as important as these 2 topics of the living entity and the Supreme Lord at the time of death. Just like we know about many things, but at the time of exam, some things are very important. That are most. So similarly, although these other questions are also important, the most important question is this Brahma and Adi Yajna. So now Krishna answers the last question of Arjuna about remembering him at the time of quitting the material body. Right now also we are quitting the body. Because nobody can stay in the body for even a second. Without our knowledge, our body is continuously changing through the 6 stages. It's being born, it grows, it stays, produces byproducts, dwindles and vanishes. Without our knowledge, this is happening to the body. Nobody can reverse the changes in the body. But we don't care about it. We think it's not so important for me, everything is going nicely. But at the time of death, it becomes very important. Because that time, the drastic change happens. Anta kale cha mameva smaran mukva kalevaram yaprayati samatpavam yati nastyatra samshayah. It's a very important verse. So this chapter is recited when someone leaves the body. So because the soul will be hovering around that body, so when you recite these verses, they remain peaceful. So Antakale means at the end of life. Mameva remembers me alone. Smaran, remembering. Mukta. Muktya Kalevara. Muktya means Kalevara means at the time of death or change of body. Whoever at the end of life quits his body remembering me alone, yaprayati samadbhavam, at once attains my nature. Yati nastyatra samshaya, of this there is no doubt. So Krishna is giving this guarantee that one who remembers his nature, just like a caterpillar is there. Caterpillar at the time of is remembering about flying, and then it acquires a butterfly body. The same caterpillar which was crawling on the ground, it acquires some wings and it's able to fly because it's always meditating. So similarly, one who is meditating about the Lord at the time of death, he acquires that nature of the Lord. May not be as great, become as great as God, but at least qualitatively he attains the nature of God. Just as by remembering Krishna, one attains Krishna, by remembering something else, one attains that object. If this is true, then the opposite also must be true. If you are remembering Krishna, you attain his abode or nature. And if you are not remembering Krishna, obviously you will attain whatever it may be. So therefore, Krishna talks about the general law of destination after death. In other words, death is very crucial. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Whatever, here it says whatever. Yam yam, 2 times it is repeated. You may say this maybe may not be that. No, anything, whatever. Vapi. Vapi means smaran, remembers. Bhavam, nature. Whichever nature you remember at that time of death. Tyajati ante kalava. When at the time of leaving the body. Kalevara means leaving the body. And ante, that's the end of the body. Tyajati means giving up the body. Tam tam. Just as yam yam came here, tam tam means exactly, precisely. Tam tam eva iti kauntiya. O son of Kunti, he will surely attain. There is no doubt. Sada tad bhava bhavitaha. A state similar to that object of constant meditation. So unless you have been practicing remembering about it, at the time of death, you will not remember that, whatever it may be. So in other words, the message is how do we conduct every moment of our life? That is very important because that will determine what we remember at the time of death, and what we remember at the time of death will determine our next destination. So now, next verse also very, very important verse. How we should think of Krishna always. So now question may arise, okay, if I think about Krishna always, what about my other works? I have so many works to do and obligations are there, then how I can do both? So that Krishna brings out that very important part. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. At all times, It's not that sometime I will remember Krishna, sometime I will remember something else. No, all times. But at the same time, Ma Manusmara Yudhyacha. Think of me and do your prescribed duty of fighting. He's telling you, not only should you remember me always, but also you should be doing your prescribed duty. Just like when I'm driving, I'm able to also talk on the mobile. If I'm an expert driver, I'm able to do two things simultaneously. But so that's why it means it requires practice. Just as it requires practice to do your prescribed duty, it also requires practice to remember Krishna at every moment. Then what is the benefit? Mayarpita mano buddhir. So what you should do for that? Offering your mind and intelligence unto me. So what does it mean, offering my mind and intelligence? The mind and intelligence depend on the senses, because although senses are inferior to the mind and intelligence, when they are engaged in a certain way, the mind and intelligence also becomes regulated. So these activities should be dedicated to me. These activities which we are doing are physical activities, but the mind and intelligence are with a subtle body. So that also is very important. Ma evaishyasi sat asamshayam. You will attain me without doubt. In other words, you will be able to remember it. Definitely you will remember me. If you have practiced living your life, thinking about Krishna all the time, and also doing your prescribed duties, focusing on what is your prescribed duty, then it will be, because at the time of death you cannot do your prescribed duty. So whatever energy you are spending in prescribed duty and remembering Krishna, that full energy goes towards remembering Krishna only. So that's Krishna is very practical. So devotion is very practical. It is not something. So how to remember Krishna? Next question is how to attain Krishna by remembering him. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. Practices to meditate. You have to practice. Even the sixth chapter, Krishna is telling that it's undoubtedly very difficult to control the mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and determination and detachment. So practice means some positive engagement. Or detachment means you have to withdraw forcefully, you have to withdraw it from something and put it in something. So Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasa. Chetasa means with the consciousness, Nanya Ghamina, with undeviated mind and consciousness. As we said, consciousness is superior to the mind. The same consciousness at different levels operates as the ego, intelligence, mind, senses, sense objects, and dull matter. So ultimately, everything is consciousness only. It is perceived differently as the false ego. Like say, there's only one hard disk, but you partition it into C, D, E, F, and whatever. So similarly, the consciousness is originally one, but it is partitioned into ego, intelligence, mind, senses, sense objects, and dull matter. So, Paramam Purusham Divyam. So, on what should we meditate? Upon me. Why we should meditate on him? Because he is the supreme. Paramam. Purusham means he is the person. Divyam means transcendental. So, obviously, if he has he's a person, then he has a name, he has form, he qualities, activities. And Yati, Partha, Anuchintayan. Attains me by such constant thinking of me. So here again the point is coming, attains me, attains his nature. Just like iron rod is there, you put it in fire, it acquires the properties of the fire. Or similarly, you have an iron rod is there, you touch to some electrical source, it also becomes a carrier of electricity. Or a iron bar is there, you put it in contact with the magnet, it also becomes magnetic. No. It doesn't become that. In other words, the living entity will not become God, but it will become godly by nature. So that is the. Now, in further, Krishna tells how we can remember him by Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Yoga means by have some desires. While fulfilling those desires, how we can remember Krishna. So, One has to know that Krishna is omniscient, Kavim. What does it mean, omniscient? He knows past, present, and future. How do we know Krishna knows past, present, and future? Because he is able to give the results of all our activities. Unless someone remembers or he is able to give what, just like Krishna was able to direct Arjuna and show him the universal form. And Krishna is telling Arjuna that I spoke this Bhagavad Gita to the sun god. And he is also talking about the present. There are many instances where God demonstrates this, that he knows past, present, and future. And many had this experience, and that is recorded in the Puranas. So therefore, he is Kavi. The next is Purana, the beginningless or the oldest. Normally, we think old means we don't give much importance. Something is very old. But here, that is not in that sense. Old means he knows from the beginning. Just like you have a history. Someone knows the past history, which means he knows all the details. So that way, he is Purana. Anushasitaram, the controller of everything. There's nothing which is not within his control. Even the wind which is blowing, or something which may think it's accidental or by chance. There's nothing like chance. So, Anor Aniyam, the smaller than the smallest. Sometimes the smallest thing is able to control the biggest. Just like the virus was there. It is so small, but it will control so many people. So, but he is smaller than the smallest. He is controlling even the smallest. Sarvasya Dhataram. Dhata means maintainer. And maintainer of everyone. Even non-living things he is maintaining them. And Achintya. Although he is all this, he is inconceivable. Nobody can really perceive him. Rupam. Beautiful personal form. So if he is able to do all these things, then definitely he must be having some form. Aditya Varnam. So Aditya means sun. So luminous like the sun and self-revealing. So just like when the sun comes, you don't need all these lights. It automatically reveals everything around you. You don't have to, supposing the sun is not there, you have to keep searching for everything. But the moment sun comes, you can see everything. So similarly, he is self-revealing. He doesn't need anyone to talk about him. When he is not present before us, someone has to talk about him. But when he becomes present, nobody needs to say that he is there or who he is. That experience is direct. And Tamasa. Tamasa Parasta. Tamasa means beyond ignorance. Transcendental to mental nature, full of ignorance. So, next, Krishna is talking about the Chakra Yoga. So one who at the time of death fixes his life air, prana, between the eyebrows, Ajna Chakra. There are, as I said in the beginning, there are energy centers in our body known as chakras. And if they are in equilibrium, then all our functions in the body are perfect. So these chakras have some correlation with the 5 material elements which we talked about: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And also they have correlation with all the planets, starting from Earth planet to Satyaloka. So one who at the time of death fixes his life air. So how this life air means they are subtle airs. Just like air is there, it has a quality of touch. But these pranas are not like that. There are different types of pranas. That is apana, udana, samana. So like that there are, depending on the different types of air circulating in the body, we are able to breathe, we are able to digest, we are able to reproduce. Everything is possible. Moving our hands and legs is because of this circulation of the air within the body. So, but there is a way to fix this, regulate this movement of the pranas. Just like there is a way to regulate the wind or regulate the flow of water or flow of current, whatever it is, we are able to, if you are able to regulate it, then you get some different effects. So, one who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows is known as Ajna Chakra. So, basically, it helps to control the mind. If you are regulating this movement of the airs within the body, then it helps to control the mind and the senses. by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, remembers the Supreme Lord with the, just like if you're trying to shoot an arrow, and if you are focused, then it will reach where it has to go. Similarly, the mind, if it has to be focused, then this life air should be regulated. Just like if you're trying to put a satellite or a rocket into the orbit, all the wind forces are very important. So this should be able to go against all those possible forces. So if the mind is fixed on this particular chakra, then the pranas will push the soul in a particular direction. And remembers the Supreme Lord with the qualities mentioned in full devotion will certainly attain. So this is one way of attaining Krishna. That is, if you follow this Chakra Yoga where you are regulating this movement of the life airs within the body, then that is one way of reaching Krishna's abode. But we will see next, after giving this knowledge, Arjuna says it is very difficult for me. So, but it was possible. In the previous ages, it was very easy. But now, in the present scenario, it is very difficult, and that's what is expressed by Arjuna. Arjuna didn't understand the method of fixing the prana in the Agnya Chakra as a part of Chakra Yoga practice. Chakra means six chakras, the life as you move it. So consciously you try to move it. Even when I am talking, actually speaking, because of the pranas, I am able to talk. So similarly, because of this pranas, the body is functioning. So this is one way you use the body to remember Krishna. By regulating the body, it also can help you to remember Krishna at the time of death. But Arjuna says that this is not possible. It is not possible to practice this Chakra Yoga. You should have very long lifespan. You should, the situation, circumstances should be very favorable, and you should have a proper guidance, and you should know whether you are going wrong or right. But unfortunately, this is not possible. What are the requirements for practicing this Chakra Yoga? First of all, one should be renounced, or with no attachments. Here it says Vita and Raga. Vita means renounced, Raga means attachment. So right now, we are neither renounced nor detached. It's the contrary. We have so many attachments and we don't know where to put our attachment. The next qualification is celibacy or brahmacharya. What is celibacy? Means you are always meditating on Brahman, that I am the spirit soul, I am not the body. In other words, you are trying to minimize the needs of the body and concentrate more on the needs of the soul. That is brahmacharya. So that also we don't do. The knowledge of the Vedas, Veda Vidaha. And we should also cultivate knowledge given in the scriptures. That also we are not able to do. And finally, one should utter Om, A, U and Im. So A, I said last time, you have to open your mouth, and U means you have to roll your tongue, and Im means you have to close your lips. So all sounds are originating from this Omkara. When you chant Om, then all sounds are included in that. So in other words, all knowledge is included in sound. Just like whatever I am speaking, it can be recorded on a device, or whatever knowledge is that I can put it in my laptop. It is one form of a sound recording only. So like that, all knowledge can be compressed into these three letters, A, U and Im. So if one is able to properly chant this Om, then he gets all knowledge. So he is able to practice this Chakra Yoga. So these four things are the requirements for practicing Chakra Yoga. First is that one should be renounced with no attachment. One should be celibate. One should have knowledge of the Vedas, and one should be constantly chanting this Omkara with proper knowledge and intonation. And what will be the result? Liberation or entrance into Brahman, which means he will come at the time of death. He will know that I am the soul, I am not the body, and therefore he is not at all disturbed at the time of death, because he doesn't need a body anymore. So that is the result he will attain. But then the process of Chakra Yoga involves closing all the doors of the senses. That is, withdrawing all senses from the sense objects or pratyahara. Ahara means food, which means if I ask you just close your eyes and sit here for 2 hours, you will become mad, because you can't stay without seeing, or you cannot stay without hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. But here it says one should withdraw, which means there is no need for them. Normally we think unless I see, smell, taste, touch, I cannot exist in this world. But here it says you have to close all the doors, which means there's no need for these senses, because whatever knowledge you may get from these eyes, ears, it's very limited. Supposing you have an eagle's eye, you can see something at a distance of 5 kilometers. But if you have a diseased eye, I cannot even see what is close by. So I'm limited by these sense objects. So no matter how much knowledge you try to get with these senses, it is always limited. So therefore, it is said that you withdraw from these sense objects. So that is the first requirement. And next is fixing the mind on the heart. So what does it mean? The soul is situated in the heart or consciousness. So the mind should fix on the Paramatma, and fixing the prana on the top of the head. So this, just like you have to orient this air to the top of the head so that it's ready to leave from the head, top of the head. Otherwise, as I said, the top to the bottom corresponds to the 7 planetary systems. Depending on from which hole the air leaves, you attain that particular planet. So if you are able to leave the body from the top of the skull, then you go out of this universe, which is topmost of the universe is in Satyaloka, and taking shelter of me completely. So how this is possible? To practice a Chakra Yoga also, one has to take shelter of the Yoga Purusha. That is because ultimately we saw this whole universe is in the control of the Virat Rupa, the universal form. So if you are able to meditate like this, then this process will be successful. And what is the destination? Vibrating sacred syllable Om. If one thinks of me, Ma Manusmara, and quits his body, he will certainly reach spiritual planets, Paramam Gatim. Why will he reach those planets? Because that is where he originally belongs to. Just like supposing something is dissolved in a liquid, supposing some vapors are there, some gases are there, they are dissolved in some solvent. But if you heat the solvent, then that will evaporate, get distilled out. So similarly, the soul originally belongs to the spiritual world. But since it is now confined to this material world, by this following this process, he becomes, he's able to liberate from this body, because what is holding him to this body is all the contamination, different levels of contaminations. So they get separated from him, just like a pure molecule is there, it is bound by other molecules. But once you provide sufficient energy, then that becomes free from the other bondings. So similarly, this soul, which is currently bound to this material world, it becomes free from those bondage. And so, but this is one process. And Arjuna clearly says, this is not practical for me. So then Krishna is telling how to remember him by pure bhakti. Supposing someone is coming to help you, when you're doing something on your own, that is this first process, Chakra Yoga. And the other process is where Krishna comes and helps you personally. Just like in this Mahabharata, many people assembled on the battlefield because they had faith in their own strength. They thought that we can fight it out ourselves. We don't need God. There are many people who think that I don't need God. Everything is going perfectly. If at all I need, I will think about him. Or even if I think about him, I will not think about him so much, maybe sometime. So, but here Arjuna is very intelligent. He understood that he cannot do this by himself. So therefore, the option is being told pure bhakti. Attaining Krishna is easy by Kevala Bhakti. If you want the difficult path, then you go through all this. And you want the easy path, then you do this Kevala Bhakti, pure Bhakti. Ananya Cheta Sadatam, without deviation of mind to other processes or goals. So why do we have these other options? Because we have different types of desires. Supposing I tell you this is what you want and this is what you should do to get that. And if you're an intelligent person, you will do only that and get what you want. But along with that, if you have some other things, then I have to tell you some other path. Supposing I tell you this is a straight path and this is what you can do and you will get this. But you say, no, I want this also, that also. Then I have to tell you some other thing. So Krishna is trying to test Arjuna whether he wants to come directly to him or he wants to go on a circuitous path. So, Ananya Cheta Satatam, without deviation of mind to other process or goals. So why these other process and other goals are given? Because there are people who want to pursue those things. And Yomam Smarati Nityasaha, the devotee who always remembers me exclusively. So apart from remembering Krishna, you can, at the time of death, you can think about so many things. You can think about your family members, your doctor, whatever, all the bank balance, everything you can think at that time. But here Krishna says exclusively, devotee always remembers me exclusively. Tasya aham sulabha partha. For him, I am the easy to obtain, O partha. So that is the main point Krishna is trying to say. If you do pure bhakti, then it will be very easy for you to remember me at the time of death and you will get what you want. But if you don't practice pure bhakti and you cultivate all these others, neither you will get those things nor you will get Krishna. So that is the problem. So, Nitya Yuktasya Yoganaha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. In other words, whatever you practice now, that will determine your future. It's not, other day one person was asking, I'm aiming for something, but I'm not achieving. Why? Because obviously, you may be aiming for that, but you are doing something else which will not lead you to that. So, similarly, if you want to get perfect freedom, then that is possible by serving the perfect one who is perfectly free. What is the comparison to other paths? Practitioners of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. So, apart from Bhakti, people follow either these three things. And if it's not in any of these, he is basically an animal. So, you may say there are millions of people who don't care about Bhakti. Then, more or less, Shastra is saying that it's animal because he doesn't know where he is going. But if he is interested in going somewhere at least, then he has to do at least Karma Yoga. What is the benefit of Karma Yoga? At least you will get elevation to higher planets. Why elevation to higher planets? On higher planets, there are higher beings. So you can maybe enjoy better than on present situation. So that you have to do Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means you have to follow the scriptures. Yoga basically means it has to follow some scripture given by God. So this you have to do that activity. Then you get elevation to higher planets. And some people think I'll get liberation. I don't want to live in this world. At least let me get out of this world. So then he pursues Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga means difference between the soul and the body. Always you are thinking, I am the soul, I am not the body. I will do this, I will not do this. That is the next process. But these people also have to do some bhakti. Even if ultimately, when you do this yoga process, someone has to give the result of that. Supposing you're working and that job, someone has to give you the remuneration for that job. So who is that going to give? Who has given that process only has to give you the result. So even to get success in Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Ashtanga Yoga, one has to do some amount of bhakti. Have their own self-interest. But what is the problem with them? Along with bhakti, they have other desires. So therefore, they do these other processes. But a pure bhakti yoga is selfless and desires nothing but Krishna service. So here service means what? You are told to do something and you do it that way. Then only it is known as service. Just like sometimes when you ask what is your profession, someone will say I am in service. Which means one thing is you do whatever you want and try to get the result of that. Other than someone tells you this way and that way you do, then it is known as a service. So thus he is Nishkama. Therefore, Nishkama means he is not focusing on his desires. He is only focusing on Krishna's desire. What is Krishna's desire? To do good to us. And if someone is trying to help you, and if you cooperate with him, that is the best. And if you make some independent plans, that is no longer service. Therefore, he can attain Krishna very easily, Sulabhaha. So because Krishna is trying to help us, and if we cooperate with him, then it becomes very easy. So there is no rebirth for the pure devotees. Ma upetya punajjanma tukkalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gataha. After attaining it, so okay, even let us say I go to the Lord's abode and attain his nature. Will I come back again? Supposing you put a rocket into space, but once after some time it may fall back into the orbit, back into the earth. After attaining me, they never take birth again in this temporary world. What is the problem with this world? Everything is temporary. That is the behind the column. It is creating misery. Every moment it is creating misery. Why there should be misery? Unless there is misery, we won't move forward. Such great souls never return to this world, having attained the highest goal of personal service to me. So what makes them remain in that spiritual world? Because they are fully satisfied with the service. Ultimately, as I told in the previous session, satisfaction comes from doing some activity, not in the result of the activity. Although we think that the result is more important, frankly speaking, the action only is the most important for us. But no action is pleasing to us in this material world. Even Brahma is not happy with his activities. But if you attain the abode of the Lord, you are completely satisfied because everyone else is there is completely satisfied. So ultimately, service means you are trying to please someone. But if that person is not himself pleased, how you will get pleased? So, but in the spiritual world, everyone is perfectly satisfied. So that is the perfect service. Having said that there is no rebirth for one who has entered the eternal spiritual world, Krishna will now contrast it with the temporary material world. So far Krishna has explained about what is the benefit of going to his abode and how to attain his abode. Now he will tell about, in contrast, what is the problem in this world. First problem is there is rebirth. Rebirth means you will again and again have to come back to the same place. So that is the which we don't want actually. Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartyanojana. Everyone in all planets up to Brahma Loka. Even if you become a Brahma, again you may have to come back to the lower planets. Even everyone in all planets up to Brahma Loka take repeated birth and death even if they are pious. Mam upetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana na vidyate. But one who attains my abode, son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Why? Because he is fully satisfied. Why even Brahma, sometimes you see a very rich person, a son of a very rich person, he gets into bad habits, which means he is not satisfied, even though he has all the comforts that the father can provide. Something he feels lacking in that. So naturally what he does, he leaves the house and goes somewhere to fulfill that desire. So similarly, even Brahma sometimes, he wants to come and enjoy in the lower planets, the lower beings. He can enjoy there also, but somehow he wants, just like a person is there, instead of eating at house, he will go and eat in the roadside. So something like that happens. Even up, we go to Brahmaloka, because you have some desire. There's many stories like Indra also was born as a pig. Indra means he is the king of the demigods, but he also had a desire to Sushindram, one place is there in near Kanyakumari. So because Indra had some desire, and he got cursed because of the desire, and he was born there. Anyway, so the point is, anywhere you go in this planet, you will not be satisfied and you will be forced. So that's why we see people going abroad, and after some time they come back here and then they go somewhere else. So which means they are not satisfied, something is lacking there. So that is the problem in this other places. What is pushing them? Their own activities. Depending on what activities we do, our mind gets changed. Under the control of karma, fruitive actions and reactions stated in the first two lines of verse will be elaborated in verse 17. The thoughts above described in the last two lines of verse will be elaborated. So material world versus spiritual world. So this, to explain what is the difference between the material and spiritual world, one calculation is being told about what is the day of one Brahma. That's known as a kalpa. It is 1,000 yuga cycles by human calculation. Because time, experience is related to time. Just like sometimes you have a very good experience, time goes very fast. Very miserable experience, time goes slow. Which means time is related to your perception. So Brahma, his perception is such that he can live for 1,000 yuga cycles. That is one day of his Brahma. So the calculation goes like this, that we have 1 year, one of our years is equal to the 1 day of the demigods. That's where we offer the forefathers once in a year. In the Mahalya Amavasya, we offer for the forefathers food, which means we assume that they are under the control of some in Pitraloka. So 1 day of the demigod is equal to 1 year of us. So like that, 360 years of our human calculation equal to 360 days for the demigods. That is 1 year for the demigods. And they live 12,000 such years. So that is equal to 1 day of Brahma. And so like that, Brahma also lives for 100 years. That is the calculation. But no matter, even such Brahma, he has to take birth again. So that is how powerful is the control of time. Manifest and unmanifest states of material world. So this planets also, they become manifest and unmanifest. Just like before this IIT was there, this is a forest. Our forest area, they developed into an institute, and maybe after a few 100 or 1,000 years, this will again perish. So again, it will become unmanifest. So that is the nature of this world. It manifests, unmanifests. So when is it random? No, there's a particular time when it will manifest and again become unmanifest. So that is related to the lifetime of Brahma. So that's why it is. In other words, what is the essence of this is, whatever change is happening in this world is related to living entities. One may be superior, one may be inferior. Superior to the unmanifest state of Brahma's night in this material world, there is another unmanifest nature, which is the eternal spiritual world. So one essential point is, in this material world also there is manifestation and manifestation. But in the spiritual world, that is also not manifest to us. But there is, it is eternal. It doesn't become, it may be unmanifest to us, but spiritual world, it's always, when you reach there, nothing perishes there. In this world, whoever it may be, even Brahma, he will see the destruction happening. But there, that destruction doesn't happen. That's what the Krishna is talking about. His abode is attainable by Ananya Bhakti people. So basically, he's trying to say, if you reach that abode, everything is permanent over there. Unlike this material world where everything is temporary, including Brahma's planet. So, Purushasya Parapartha Bhaktya Labhyastvananyaya. O Partha, the Supreme Person who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed, undeviating devotion. Yasya Sthani Bhutani Yena Sarvam Idam Jagat Idam Tadam. Everything is situated within him. He is all pervading, although he is present in his abode. Just like a foreign country is there. If you want to go to the foreign country, you don't have to go all the way there. They have set up an embassy in your country, and by approaching them, you will be able to go to the other country. Similarly, because the Lord is all pervading, you can access him even in this material world. Just like there are some people who are able to go to the sun planet by walking on the sun rays. There are yogis. The sun is there and the sunlight is coming up to me. They can hold on to the sun rays and go to the sun planet. So these siddhis are there. So similarly, although we want to go to the highest abode of Supreme Lord, we can do it by accessing God while we are in this material world itself. Because he is all pervading. Just like the satellite is somewhere, but the benefit of the satellite I am able to get even here, because there is some communication happening. So supremacy of pure bhakti in attaining Krishna. So what is the point here? When you do pure bhakti, Krishna takes immediate note of it, and then we get the benefit of his presence even though he is far, far away. So different times of, now Krishna comes to the final part, as to, because that was the main question of Arjuna, how he can remember him at the time of death. So now Krishna explains that what will be the destination depending on what you think at the time of death. What are the possibilities? First is, it depends on the time of death. I shall now explain the different times at which, passing away from the world, the yogi does or does not return to this world. Just like there are, as the same example I gave, there are different flights going to different destinations. You cannot go to all places at the same time. One flight will go to one place, another flight after some few minutes, next place. So like that, time is perfectly controlled by certain personalities. And depending on which time you leave your body and who is present at that time, he will take you to his destination. So that is why for the yogis, it is very important as to when they leave their body. Because that particular time, when they leave the body, there will be one personality present and he will take you to his abode. Otherwise, the soul just cannot leave the body. That's why we see some people in coma, which means there's nobody to take the soul to the next destination. So, I shall now explain the different times at which passing away from the world, the yogi does or does not return to this world. One is the path of light. So here, auspicious movement in light and fire that influence the sun god, fire god during the day in the Shukla Paksha, that is the northern solstice, and the Paurnami, that is when the moon is in the growing phase, and Uttarayana, 6 months in the south, travels in the north. So for Jnanis, so who are eligible for this? Who can regulate the time of leaving the body? There are some people who can choose the time of their death. Even on PC Sarkar, there was a senior. He knew that he is going to die. So, which means it is possible for some to know that they are going to die. So what they do, they choose the particular time when they leave the body. So Brahma Jyoti, so what is their destination? They leave this material world itself. Because how? They don't live by themselves. There are some people who come at that particular time when they're leaving the body. And these people choose to leave the body exactly at that time. And those people who are outside this universe, they can take them to that. Just like if you want to go to Germany, that particular aircraft from Germany has to come to India, Lufthansa or whatever, that is operated by Germans, that has to come here and take you. So similarly, when you are leaving at that particular time, this mentioned here, the personalities who are outside this universe, they come and take you. But path of darkness, in darkness, night, during smoke, in the Krishna Paksha, fortnight of waning moon, in Dakshinayana, 6 months, when the soul travels to the south. So what happens? They go to heavenly planets. In other words, these people are within this 14 worlds. So one of them from those planets has to come in. Why? Because some people want to be happy here only. Just like some slum dwellers are there. If the government wants to clear all the slums, so what they do, free of cost, they give some houses. But these slum dwellers, they give that house for rent or sell it, and they continue to remain in the slums. So that is what is happening. These people know that if I leave my body at this time, I will go to out of this universe, but they don't want to go there. They want to remain here and enjoy. So like Indra also, he was invited by Brahma to go back to his abode. When he was in the body of a pig, Indra was approached by Brahma to come back to his abode. But he refused. He said, I'm happy here. So that's what happens. These people, they choose to leave their body in such a time so that they can remain here. Sometimes there are some colleges, the students don't want to vacate the hostel because once they go out of the institute, they will have to work or search for so many things, or even the prisoners in the jail. They don't want to leave the prison. And once they are sent out of the prison, they do some crime so that they can come back to the prison. So like that, these people don't want to leave this universe because they're happy here, everything nice. So they leave their body at such a time that people will come and keep them in this world. So that is the main point here. At the time of death, the mind carries one to a new life. People in general must leave the body at a suitable time. So you cannot say, okay, I will live in this body, I'm happy with this body, I live as long as well. No, you will be, because the body is also in charge. Just like if you want to stay in the hostel forever, they will say, no, you have to vacate this hostel, because someone else has to come and stay here. So similarly, this body will be forced out of the body. So, but for the pure devotee in Krishna consciousness, there's no fear of returning to this world, whether they leave the bodies at an auspicious and inauspicious moment. So the third option is when you are always remembering Krishna, Krishna is present with you all the time. So you don't have to depend on these other people. Either you don't have to go out of this world or you stay in this world, doesn't matter to you. You will always, just like a Bali Maharaja was there. When he surrendered everything to Vamanadev, Vamanadev said, I will be with you even though you go to Sutala Loka. So he had the Lord's presence with him all the time. So it didn't matter to him whether, even though he was in the lower planet. So similarly, when a person becomes a devotee of the Lord, the time of death doesn't matter, because wherever he may go, the Lord will go with him. So that is the path of the devotees. So even by accident, supposing you die, sometimes devotees also die by accident. By accident or arrangement, being fully surrendered souls, they leave everything in Krishna's hands and easily go to the spiritual world. Just like you have a chartered flight. Chartered flight means according to your plan, the flight will leave. You don't have to run behind the thing. You say, I want to leave at this time. Okay, they will arrange a flight for you, specially for you. So that is the advantage of being a devotee. So what is the path of although the devotees know these two paths, they are never bewildered. Which means they know clearly where they are going. But these people who are leaving the body, the path of light or path of darkness, although some idea they have where they are going, but they don't know precisely where they are going, because it all depends on who comes at that particular time. But in the case of the devotees, all the time only the Lord will come or his representative will come. So therefore they are not bewildered. So basically, they, just like a Parikshit was there, he was cursed to die in 7 days. But before he could die itself, he knew where he was going. So he was peaceful at the time of death. But mostly, even if you go out of this universe or within the universe, you're always in anxiety. So that is the difference between being a devotee and not a devotee. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. For Arjuna, Tasmat is a very important verse. Tasmat sarveshu kalesu yoga yukto bhavarjuna. This point is again repeated. What is this is the conclusion of this chapter? Vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva. By studying the Vedas, if you try to acquire all the knowledge in this world, that is one thing. Performing sacrifices, you try to please everyone in this world. Yajneshu. Tapassu, undergoing austerities. By studying the Vedas, performing sacrifice, undergoing austerity. Whatever is austerity, you know that if I work hard for something, I will get some result. All that you may have attempted, but Daneshu, charity, giving charity. Sometimes by giving, you get something back. Supposing I have a lot of currency with me, I know if I exchange that currency, I will get something very valuable. So all these we are attempting. All of us are more or less attempting all these things. What we are doing, we are studying the Vedas, we are trying to get some knowledge, and we are doing some sacrifices. We are trying to please someone. We are trying to do some austerities on our own, and we are giving charity in exchange for some benefits. Whatever pious results may, punya phalam pradishtam, whatever result you can achieve by any of these 4 things can, atyeti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi paramsthanam upeti chakyam. One can surpass all of them by knowing me and my glories. Because ultimately all this is coming from Krishna. So instead of going and begging for money, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, renunciation here and there, if you go to some person who has all these unlimitedly, then you are the most intelligent. So one can surpass all of them by knowing me and my glories and performing devotion. Such a devotee attains the supreme eternal abode. So Krishna personally comes and takes you to his abode. Sometimes you are traveling to you want to go to visit someone. Let us say that person comes to your home and picks you up and takes you. There are some instances like that, isn't it? So like that, this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. Orders of life means the Varnashrama Dharma. As a brahmachari, grihastha, householder, celibate, retired and renounced, or as a brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, there are so many things to be done. But even if you don't do that perfectly, if you become a devotee, then Krishna personally comes and takes you to his abode. So that is the message of this chapter. Any comments or questions? So this is a very important chapter known as more confidential knowledge. The next chapter will be the most confidential. What is the power of devotion? That he will elaborate in this chapter, because by being a devotee, you will know everything. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram, Idamuttamam, Pratyakshavagamam, Dharmyam, Susukam Kartavayam. There is telling about what is the benefit of knowing Krishna. Okay? Questions come. Comment means something you understood. As I said, you might have understood something which other person might not have understood. So by telling that also, you're doing some benefit to others. So please feel free to share. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we have two swabhavas. One is eternal nature and one is temporary nature. But that is also important. Right now, we have this identification with our body and mind. That is also one sense of swabhava. We cannot change it. If you want, you just say, I'll remove my body, remove my mind, not possible. So in that sense, it is our swabhava right now, which is dominating us. And there's another swabhava, which is also controlling us, that is our spiritual nature. So that is referred to as Adhyatma. So in the conditioned state and the liberated state, that's Adhyatma, the meaning changes. Right now, Adhyatma means about my soul, about my body, about my mind and senses. But in the liberated state, same Adhyatma refers to the soul. That will be my original Swabhava. Which means what is controlling my nature? What is controlling my activities? What is controlling my thoughts? It depends on my Swabhava, what I identify myself.
Second one is that the 11th sloka. Result of such Chakra Yoga is entrance into Brahman. So, such Chakra Yoga, in full devotion to me, they will certainly attain the 8.9 Such Chakra Yoga.
Okay, just like the, yeah?
8.9 Such Chakra Yoga.
Yes.
So, entrance to Brahman.
Yeah. So just like an aircraft is there, how it is flying, it is able to manipulate the wind. There are so many different wind forces acting on the aircraft. But the aircraft is able to manipulate the wind forces and able to fly up or fly down, go down. Basically, when the body is on the ground, it is running based on the friction and how you are overcoming the friction. But once the aircraft is in the air, it is only manipulating the wind. By to rise up or rise down, is only manipulating the wind. So similarly, this pranas, they either bind the soul to the body or they can liberate the soul from the body. So now the question is, how do we free the soul from the body? And how the soul becomes free from this life forces? One is the yogi tries to do it by himself. He is trying to repress the movement of this air within the body by regulating his activities. That's what we see, that yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara. So these are all physical means by which one is trying to control the movement of the air within the body, and then he is able to free the soul from this body. But at the most, it can go out of this material world. But then he is not satisfied in that position, because the purpose is not really to free the soul from the body. The real freedom for the soul is when it's engaged in devotional service. The body is not the problem. What activity it is doing, that is the problem. So this either Krishna himself can free you from this bodily entanglement, or you try it on your own. Just like some person, he is dying at one particular time and going to the spiritual world, and one person commits suicide. Both are becoming free from the body. But this person who committed suicide, he again has to wait and take another birth again. Whereas the other person who waited for his death, he is getting because he is accepting the will of the Lord and dying at that particular time and going. So this Chakra Yoga, either you practice by your own methods and try to free yourself from the body. But that is not perfect. But the same Chakra Yoga, when you do it with the help of the Lord, then it is real freedom. That is, even when you are in the body, you are liberated. Yes. Basically, Chakra Yoga has to free the soul from the body. Now the body, our body is fully related to the planetary systems, 14 planetary systems, and earth, water, fire, air, everything. So to free the soul from the body, you manipulate the airs, the different pranas. So, but this Chakra Yoga can take you only outside this material world. It cannot elevate you to the spiritual world. But the Dhyana Yoga, it's able to meditate on the super soul, but that also, because super soul is also within the material world only. The Purushavataras, they are also within the material world. So they help you to remain in this material world only. Even Paramatma worshippers, they can get only mystic powers. And maybe they can manipulate this material energy to some extent. But they can also not get free from this world. But the Chakra Yoga can also free you from this world. But even if you get free from this world, what you will do there? Because you are not going, just like you send a satellite. It is out of this orbit, but it's still within this planet only. It has not gone to the next planet. So, Dhyana Yoga was talked in the 6th chapter. In this chapter, Chakra Yoga is mentioned. So this is different from Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana Yoga is meditating on the super soul, and that helps you to attain mystic powers. But this Chakra Yoga, that Dhyana Yoga cannot liberate you from this material. Even if you meditate on the Paramatma, you will not get freedom from this material world. You will only get mystic powers. That was mentioned in the 6th chapter. But in this chapter, Chakra Yoga tells either you can get free from this material world. That is one benefit of Chakra Yoga. But higher benefit of Chakra Yoga is, even if you are in this material world, you are not influenced by the material world. That is by Krishna consciousness. Just like the people in the embassy, they are in this country only, but they are belonging to the foreign country. Yes? Yeah, that's what I answered her question. Swabhava means what is my nature. So when I am in the conditioned state, my swabhava depends on my body and the mind. Supposing if I have a particular body, I have a dog body, I behave like a dog. So that is my swabhava. Or if I'm thinking like something, then that is my swabhava. But when I become liberated, my swabhava is as a relation to the Lord. I am as a servant, I am his friend, I am his lover, I am his parent. So that becomes my swabhava. So this swabhava can be changing. Right now our swabhava is related to the body and the mind and ego. So that swabhava depends on my activity. So what I am doing now, that depends my swabhava. So nature and action are related in this world. You may be an engineer, but if you are not acting like an engineer, that qualification has no value. You will ultimately be recognized by what you are doing. So that becomes your swabhava. Just like Dronacharya was a Brahmana, but his swabhava was a Kshatriya. He had acquired the nature of a Kshatriya. And Vishwamitra was a Kshatriya, but he acquired the nature of a Brahmana.
Let's say it continuously cycle affect our mind. So at that time, we can't remember our
Yeah, his question is, Kulashekara Alvar, he is saying that at the time of death, I may not remember Krishna. So he is giving the solution himself that I leave my body when I am fit. My body is cooperating with me, I remember Krishna. Supposing you get a visa to a country at an advanced age, let us say you get a visa in 8 years. What is the use of that visa? Because if you get that visa when you are 40 years, it is some value. Similarly, if you leave your body when it is able to remember Krishna, that's much better than leaving your body at an age at a time when you are not able to remember him. So, in other words, we have to make the choice to do devotion right now. We should not postpone it. So that is his main point. When everything is favorable to a devotion, you have to take up devotion. You don't wait for things to become bad and then you think about it. Okay, I think time is short now. We'll stop here. We'll do our round of chanting. How? Yeah, how you live. So he is asking, is it destined when we leave the body? Yes and no. For some people, yes. If they are very much bodily conscious, then just like every body has a lifetime, this object is there, it has a lifetime. So if you are bodily conscious, then your time is destined when you leave the body. But if you, the Nachiketa, the story is there. Nachiketa, he went to Yamaloka. So he left his body at the proper time only, which means that body was destined to live for that much time. But when he went to Yamaloka, he asked some very interesting questions, by which he was sent back to live longer. So like that, even though the body has a distance, there are some people, when you buy some object, they say, this is the expiry date is so much. But doesn't mean that exactly at that time, it becomes dysfunctional. It may extend off if you use it properly. Maybe you can extend the time also, although it is designated for 10 years. Lifetime is 10 years. Sometimes the people are maintaining that very nicely, so they can use it for maybe 12, 13 years also. Or some people, even though its lifetime is 10 years, they spoil it such that in 6th year itself it becomes dysfunctional. So although the moment we acquire a body, it is destined to perish at a particular time. Whether to live before or after, that choice is still there. That is possible if you take to devotional service. Because ultimately the body is in the control of the Lord. Time is also under the control of the Lord. Although the demigods are deciding what is the lifetime of that body, the Supreme Lord has the power to shorten it or lengthen it. Just like some people, they take 4 years to complete a course. There have been instances where people have completed in 3.5 years also. Doesn't mean, because why? After 3.5 years, obviously he has a better choice. Some people extend it after 4 years also. So like that, although every body has a lifetime designated, the still Lord has the power to either shorten it or extend it. Just like an elephant is there, 100 years, lifetime of an elephant, 100 years. But there are elephants which die before 100 or after 100 also. Okay, so we'll do one round of chanting and thank to all the participants in the Zoom session. And end the Zoom session. So we'll be doing the same 8 chapter in detail from Monday to Friday, evening 7 to 8 o'clock. The same Zoom link you can use.